Mr. Speaker, our side, even where we disagree, will not go insulting judges. The fact that we have been quiet does not mean that we think the judge has been fair to us. And you will not see us calling the judge name. We are not like some people.
The terms of the court order were specific. The court orders were directed at the speaker to perform a certain function. And being the occupier of that seat, we submitted that until that decision was taken by the House, the status quo ante will remain. What was the status quo ante?
It is most unfair for Mr. Dafio Mekpo to describe a respected colleague as a fugitive.
Honorable Reverend Tim Fojo, you may read your statement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to make a statement to address the alarming and deeply troubling deportation of the 156 Ghanaian immigrants from the United States. Since the beginning of 2025, we have witnessed an aggressive crackdown on undocumented immigrants, leading to the forced removal of thousands of immigrants in the United States, many of whom have lived in the United States for decades, built families, and contributed meaningfully to their communities. Mr. Speaker, what is most distressing about these deportations is not only their scale, but the inhumane treatment our citizens endure at United States detention centers before their forced removal. Stories in the news reports paint a grim picture of our fellow citizens subjected to degrading conditions, overcrowded and unsanitary holding facilities, shackles on their hands and feet, denial of legal representation, physical and verbal abuse, lack of medical care, and in many cases, outright violation of their fundamental human rights. Mr. Speaker, these Ghanaians, though facing deportation for various reasons, remain our brothers and sisters. We simply cannot turn a blind eye to their suffering. Mr. Speaker, the question before this House and the government is, what immediate diplomatic measures are being taken to ensure that the human rights of Ghanaian immigrants in the United States are protected? Our citizens deserve fair treatment, and it is imperative that our government demands accountability from the United States authorities regarding the treatment of deportees before their return. I urge the government through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to strengthen its diplomatic engagements to negotiate humane and appropriate deportation processes and ensure the basic human rights of our dear citizens are not trampled upon. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, we must address the urgent issue of reintegration. Many deportees arrive in Ghana with no resources, no jobs, no clear path forward. Some have spent most of their lives in the United States of America and would struggle to integrate back into Ghanaian society without support. It is therefore crucial that the government, through the Ministry of Labor, Jobs and Employment, establish structured reintegration programs, including job placement initiatives, skills training, and mental health and psychosocial support for the returnees. We must ensure that they are not left to suffer in silence. Mr. Speaker, due to various factors, including economic hardships at home, many of our citizens have undertaken high-risk and precarious migration in search of better opportunities abroad. Therefore, addressing unemployment and expanding economic prospects is crucial in curbing the number of Ghanaians turning to irregular migration. Government institutions, particularly the Youth Employment Agency, must take decisive action to combat unemployment by creating sustainable job opportunities and offering skills development programs. Even more productive will be for the government to support and incentivize the private sector to create more jobs for the youth. Mr. Speaker, one of the most heartbreaking consequences of this deportation is family separation. Parents are ripped away from their children, spouses are left in limbo, uncertain about their future, and families are torn apart without any clear pathway nor hope to reunification. Many families have been shattered by these mass deportations, with parents separated from their children and spouses left stranded. I strongly urge the government to work through our embassies in the United States to facilitate family reunification processes, ensuring that those affected have a clear legal pathway to reconnect with their loved ones. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I propose that the government instructs our embassies in the United States to fast-track passport processing for undocumented Ghanaian immigrants who wish to regularize their status or make informed decisions about their future before deportation becomes their only option. A proactive approach could prevent further suffering and allow those affected to navigate their immigration challenges with dignity. Now more than ever, it is imperative for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to lead the charge with alacrity in providing extensive consular services for Ghanaians living abroad, especially in the United States, while deepening bilateral engagement with USA in relation to modalities of deportation. As I conclude, Mr. Speaker, we cannot remain silent while our citizens are treated unjustly abroad and left helpless upon their return. It is our responsibility as a nation to stand for the dignity and rights of all Ghanaians, no matter where they reside. I urge this House and the government to take immediate action to address this pressing issue. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, we are going to invite two from each side. And yes, Honorable Member for Swami.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you very much for the opportunity to comment on the statement by my brother, Honorable Intim Fojo. Mr. Speaker, listening to him, one of the things you come up with is that these deportees will be brought to Ghana. But if you follow the American news cycle, you will realize that the deportees are not all of them are being brought to the country. Indeed, Marco Rubio, who is the Secretary of State, has informed the United States that Panama and El Salvador have accepted to receive deportees from all nationalities into their country. And, Mr. Speaker, when you follow the news article, you will see that El Salvador received these deportees into one of their notorious prisons. And the conditions in these prisons are so bad, they are not good for human beings to live in. These are the places where the deportees are being sent to. You also realize that when the deportees are being sent outside the United States, we've seen news cycles which show that they are put in military planes without even proper seats. And so they travel under very extreme and inhumane manner. It tells you that the United States has changed. I believe that the USA, which used to be the promoter of human rights, has changed its policy because of the kind of immigration policy that is being enforced right now. Mr. Speaker, for me, I believe that the reason why people go over to America and these European countries is to seek for greener pastures. These days, we don't have political asylum seekers out of our country any longer. Indeed, if you go out there as a political asylum seeker from Ghana, you will not be accepted. So it tells you where we have come as a country. The only reason why people travel out of the country is because they are seeking to better their lives. And Mr. Speaker, it means for us as a country, we need to do better to provide jobs and job opportunities for the people of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, I will not be able to end this statement without also advising our people who have traveled outside the country, especially in the United States, to also take care of themselves and be law-abiding. Because one of the fastest way to get arrested and be brought down is when you commit an offense. In the US, police will not be able to stop you without a just cause. So when you are driving a vehicle, you need to ensure that you have everything on the car number, everything, the lights, everything is working properly. Without a just cause, a police officer in the United States will not be able to stop you. So let's be law-abiding when we move from our country to live in places like America. If we do that, I believe that the rate of deportation will be low. And so on that, Mr. Speaker, I thank the maker of the statement, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. I yield the floor.
Thank you very much. Let me, yes, Chair Pony.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to add my voice to the statement. I've lived in America before, and I know how the system works. I'm very sure they know what they are doing. All that we can say is that we must live, our citizens in America must always carry along with them the right document wherever they are going. I have friends there, I have families there, and I'm always in chat with them. I believe that they are law-abiding Ghanaians. The Ghanaian community in America and anywhere in the world, we are always law-abiding citizens. We represent the state, the country at the highest level in terms of discipline, in terms of moral right, in terms of our behavior and attitude towards our neighbors. So I believe that the Trump administration knows exactly the wealth of Ghanaians. If you go to America today, you will find Ghanaians in every offices. You will find Ghanaians in the hospital. You will find Ghanaians working very hard in the grocery stores. And we serve to the best of our ability wherever we are. So I believe that the policy that the American government is presently or currently executing, America, they are mostly inward. Mostly. They consider what is the best for them. What is the best for them. And Ghanaians, we also understand and know very well that wherever we represent ourselves, we live in the right behavior. So I believe that Ghanaian citizens in America, we must always carry our right documents wherever we find ourselves in order to avoid any litigation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Let me, at least we have one of our own who used to be an ambassador, a diplomat. So, honorable diplomat. Yes, let's hear you.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I want to associate myself with the statement made by the good Reverend. Mr. Speaker, it's true that when people are arrested, especially in the United States, they are subjected to some inhumane conditions. I remember when I used to work at the Foreign Ministry, where we've had times to complain about deportees being chained on flights from the United States to Accra. People, Ghanaians, will be chained and then not even allowed to even go and pee on flights. I think that it's high time we look at this issue and see what can be done about it. At the embassies, oftentimes when Ghanaians are arrested for violating immigration conditions in the States, they don't even inform the embassies. You only get to know when the American authorities come for travel certificates, to aid the deportation of these detainees. Other than that, officials will not even know. So I think that we have to take this matter seriously with the embassy here in Accra. And then the foreign minister must also engage his counterpart in the United States. Mr. Speaker, luckily for us, I think that we have the topmost envoy to United States name yet to be mentioned by the president. We are yet to hear who is going to represent our interest in the United States as ambassador. I'm urging or I'm pleading with Mr. President to get somebody who has the network within the top echelons of the conservative establishment in the United States. It shouldn't be appointments as usual, where you have a former, say, top official of a party, representing the interest, because under this era of gunboat diplomacy of Trump, we need people who have the networks, people who can engage the Trump administration to get our bit of the national cake of America. And if we succeed in doing this, I think, Mr. Speaker, it will help us a long way. Again, I would also want to talk about the consular fund that's yet to be established. The foreign minister, when he appeared before the appointment committee, did say that this year he's hopeful that the finance minister will allocate some funds to this fund. It will be very, very, very good if this is done. Mr. Speaker, at the embassies, oftentimes when Ghanaians are subjected to these deportation orders, officials would have to sit down. If I say official, officers of the embassy, we normally sit down. Then we do lala sulala. I go around when I was the High Commissioner in South Africa. I call my officers, please, let's contribute, because we contribute to buy the tickets of deportees who are brought home. And you know the meager salaries that we take abroad. So, Mr. Speaker, it's good that this consular fund is being brought into fruition, and we expect that the finance minister will put in some huge amount of cash into this fund, so that when deportees are subject to deportation, we are able to buy their tickets, able to help them, come home safely. With these few words, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you, and also thank again the maker of that statement.
Okay, last one. Yes.
Mr. Speaker.
Kintampo South.
Thank you for the opportunity to contribute the statement made by our Reverend. Mr. Speaker, before I continue, I want to make point of correction, because this is House of Record. I think before they deport anybody from abroad, before they handcuff the person, it's when the person has done something bad, criminal. Most of the time, when you are deported, it's not about you are deported and they will put handcuffs and stuff on your this thing. But Mr. Speaker, the most important thing is that when something happens to you outside the country, it's not even easy for you to get somebody from the embassies. Something will happen, you will call the embassy, because that's happened to me before. I lost my whole bag in America 2019. I was member of parliament. Lucky that I was, because then Honorable Adjoa Safo was in America then. So he happened to be with the ambassador then they have to make another passport for me to come to Ghana. So most of our friends and family outside, it's not that they don't want to call them. You will call the office, and then the way the person would even respond to you sometimes is very sad. And imagine being outside and something has happened to you. Mr. Speaker, these are some of the things that we pray that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, which I know he's going to do it, that he will start this apprenticeship program, because we have a lot of people that go to Libya. Yes, we have a lot of people that they go through the deserts, go to Libya. My constituency, that is why this apprenticeship program is very, very good. Now they will go to Libya and come back. You see that they are mason, they are terrazzo, what have you, and they are very good the way they lay their blocks. So yeah, construction. So if this 24-hour economy and apprenticeship program, since we all know, so we are going to give them a technical, yes, just for them to learn. Then they will sit in their country and work, so that they will pay their taxes. So, Mr. Speaker, and you see, November, just November, somebody was appointed. I don't even know whether it was November or December in Atlanta's office. I don't know, Ambassador, maybe I stand for correction. Then imagine that time the person was appointed. Mr. Speaker, that office, let something happen to you in Atlanta, because I'm a witness, and call if somebody will pick up the phone. So I pray that our new minister, the foreign minister that we know, Honorable Okujeto Ablakwa, which we know very well that he's very good, he will change things at the embassy so that our people there to will reset, and then our people there to have people that to call them when they are in trouble. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Let me come to Minority Chief Whip.
Speaker, I'm privileged to have chaired the Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament once upon a time. And my ranking, interestingly then, was now Minister for Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Ablakwa. We can't pretend about this matter. It's something that has been bothering our minds. I have been particularly worried about it because we've seen footage of, I won't say Ghanaians because I'm unable to confirm their identity. We've seen footage of our fellow human beings, Africans, being put in chains and being deported to our country. So suffice it to say that we have international protocols on such undertakings, and hence where countries have shown commitment to such protocols, countries in partnership cannot decide to do otherwise. And I couldn't have agreed more with my colleague when he says the USA are respected for human rights, respect for human rights, respect for the dignity of human beings and all that. What is happening is not right. And we cannot pretend about it. I think by this time, we shouldn't even be at the instance of we members of Parliament. The foreign minister should be in this house to tell us, in terms of giving us situational report, what the situation is. Nobody is saying he has caused it. No, deportation is not the first time this is happening, but the circumstance under which it is going on is totally unacceptable, and it frowns on human dignity. So I think we must take interest in this. I would have wished that our Committee on Foreign Affairs goes into that, invite the minister, and then come and apprise us accordingly. We, as the representative of the people, must know what is happening. How many Ghanaians have been deported so far? What is the situation? We write on international media that Ghanaians cannot even go to churches. People cannot go to church, they cannot go about their social work and all that. It's a problem. And I would have wished that, I know, we'll grant the government the benefit of the doubt, because I know under the 24-hour economy, you will be able to encourage Ghanaians to move from the US of A and come to Ghana, because you are going to create more jobs. You are going to create more jobs. I'll come to that. So we'll give you some time. Set the tone, create jobs, let Ghanaians move, because all the people outside will be more willing to relocate and come and support the building of our country. Many of our compatriots who are outside wants to come to this country and help in the building of our country, especially on your call of 24-hour economy. I want to limit myself to the terms of the statement and not to generate any debate. However, if at one instance You are displaying a 24-hour economy.
Honorable
And you are
member,
telling us...
Honorable leader, please, you said it rightly. Please don't let us degenerate into politics.
Speaker,
But this is a very sensitive, and I don't want us to.
Speaker, I'll draw the curtains. If it is the case that they are afraid of their own 24-hour economy, that's fine.
No, leader.
Because
leader.
I wanted to put matters in context.
Leader, this is a statement, please.
So,
let's restrain from that, and I beg of you, please.
Speaker, you know I respect you, I respect the rules. But fact must be told. Now that you have cautioned that I should stay away from 24-hour economy, and they themselves are afraid of their 24-hour economy, that's fine. I will stay away. But let it be put on record. Speaker, let it be put on record that on this day, my colleagues, my respected colleagues in the majority, are shying away from the 24-hour economy. And they are saying I shouldn't go there. That's fine. I won't go there. Speaker, let me rather conclude that it's a matter we don't have to politicize. Our own Ghanaians, compatriots are outside. You never know. It could be your family relation. It could be somebody dear to you. Speaker, we cannot wish this matter away. I want to pray your consequential directives. Because we don't have our committees, Speaker, the foreign minister should be programmed, should be duly programmed, and thankfully he's one of our own. He should be programmed to come to this house and let us know what the situation is. Give us some situational report. How many Ghanaians have been deported so far? What is the situation? What is the capacity of our embassies outside to be able to contain the situation? Speaker, we cannot wish this matter away. And I'll be very glad if, for your wisdom, we program the minister next week. We have Friday, Tuesday is free. We are told His Excellency the President will be in the house on Thursday. So we have Tuesday, we have Wednesday. Between one of these days, he could be programmed, or even Friday, for the minister to come and address this sensitive matter. At least Ghanaians should know that something is being done. And the minister, we can't invite anybody than the sector minister to come and apprise us. And then we'll be able to, Ghanaians will be able to know what the situation is. But as for the 24-hour economy, we have to be proud about it. Hold on to
leader.
It and be proud about it.
Leader.
Speaker.
Yes, majority leader.
Speaker, Speaker, I thank you. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sometimes I am careful when commenting on matters like this. What is the background? We must always be guided by the fact. The fact is that some people living in their country have laws about how you enter their country and how you stay in their country. We go into their country and we either go in clear violation of the laws, or we try to stay in the country in clear violation of the laws. They decide to enforce their laws, and then we are at the receiving end of their desire to enforce their laws. And so when you are discussing a matter like that, you are a bit careful, because you cannot be too much against somebody who is insisting on enforcing the laws of his country. And yet we have a duty at all times, no matter what happens, to protect our compatriots wherever they may find themselves. And that is why I join colleagues in calling on our missions abroad, especially in the US, given that they know around this time the US government has taken a decision to enforce its immigration laws, and many of our compatriots may be at the receiving end and may be deported, that they should extend to them their basic rights as citizens of our country, which is that they must be available to extend whatever support that our citizens may need in order that they may not be treated inhumanely. And I join colleagues here to urge our foreign missions to be very responsive, especially around this time. But, Mr. Speaker, we as a country, we owe them a duty, not just because they are compatriots, but their presence there over the decades have contributed to our welfare back here. Because if you look at the statistics and the revenues that come to our country, remittances is one major source of foreign exchange that comes into this economy. And so they have been contributing to the development of our economy. And so I urge our side here that when they are afflicted with such circumstances and they return home, we must have a buffer for them. We must make provision to receive them, and we must make arrangements to help them to reintegrate into our society. And I think that the Minister for Foreign Affairs will be up and doing in putting in place infrastructure for doing that. But, Mr. Speaker, we're all just looking at the symptoms of a problem and failing to address the underlying cause of the problem, which is what I think the Minority Chief Whip alluded to. Why do our people walk across the Sahara, risk the Mediterranean just to cross into Europe? Why will they risk the Atlantic, cross into South America, and walk across the desert through Brazil into America, the United States of America? Mr. Speaker, the underlying issues remain poverty, lack of economic opportunities, bad governance, conflict on our continent, and these are the underlying issues that we must address, so that when they want to travel to any of those countries, they go there just as tourists or even as investors, as we now see from Asia into North America and into Europe. So those of us in this chamber and the political class, instead of lamenting about the decision of America to enforce their laws and the treatment that they may mete out to our citizens, let's be sitting up and looking at the fundamental issues, the underlying causes, the root causes, which is the way that we have mismanaged our countries, the way that we have misgoverned our countries, the way that we have wasted our resources, the corruption that leads to enormous loss of revenues to our states, our inability to create the best healthcare system for our people, our inability to provide our people with the best skills so that they can compete. America needs skilled labor. Europe needs skilled labor. And if we just train our people well, and they were the most skilled, they will be sitting here and America will look for them. They will be sitting here and Europe will be beckoning them to come over. The whole idea of, green cards and etc., they are just all mechanisms for bringing in, certain categories of labor. And people who have green card and are living there don't get treated the way that, these deportees are being treated. And so we need to take serious the commitments that the NDC has made in the manifesto to try and build the skills of the youth. Mr. Speaker, it is the way forward. It is the way forward that we invest in human resource development. We invest in skills. When our youth are skillful,
Leader, you're also going there.
Mr. Speaker,
you're also going there.
We are dealing with the underlying issues of immigration and migration, and what we should do to deal with. I really had no objection with him, providing such guidance. I had no objection. I think
you had no objection. I had no objection.
No, Mr. Speaker.
And
anytime
equally also have a problem.
Anytime he mentioned 24-hour economy, the reason why you heard some response from this side was that they were excited that he was in love with 24-hour economy. that he is the person engaged in advocacy of 24-hour economy. That was why we were responding, not that we are objecting to him mentioning 24-hour economy. Indeed, we are happy when friends on the other side show that they accept the policy of 24-hour economy, the way the Ghanaians accepted and voted for NDC massively. Mr. Speaker, I think that as a political class, we owe it a duty to all those young people who have died in the Mediterranean, all those young people who have died walking across the Sahara Desert, all those young people who have been victims of rape, of arson, of killings in South America, trying to walk into the United States of America, we owe them a duty to sit up and start running our countries properly. Start creating real opportunities. Start building their skills. Start making the best use of our resources to create economic opportunities for them. If we did this, I'm not saying there will never be migration, but if we did this, we will significantly minimize it. And when there are immigration enforcement measures in the US, we will not be having sleepless nights about our family members being deported, because they will not be the targets. And this does not just apply to Ghana. Mr. Speaker, I've been a member of the ECOWAS Parliament, and this is a major issue for the sub-region. How we can ensure that we minimize conflict, because conflict is one of the reasons why many of our populations are compelled to migrate. They migrate within West Africa, and some migrate across the oceans. Unless we fix our countries and deal with conflict, we will not easily deal with the problem of migration. Mr. Speaker, let me join colleagues to commend the maker of the statement for drawing our attention to this situation, and to join them to urge our Minister for Foreign Affairs to put in place adequate measures to support our compatriots who may be victims of deportation by the United States. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, honorable members. On that note, I will invite the minister responsible for foreign affairs to come to the House on Friday, a week today, to at least.
Mr. Speaker, you said Minister for Foreign Affairs. Minister for Foreign Affairs. So you can ask that we check and find his availability and bring him to this House. Because Minister of Foreign, his job is to go foreign. So he might not be available on Friday.
Anyway, let's get information to him. If he's not available, you let us know. Leader, please just carry the message to him that if he'll be kind enough to be in the House on Friday to at least brief the House. If there's something that will restrain him, he will let you know, then you let the House. I think it's okay. Let's move on. Let's move on, leader.
Speaker, we have a duty to help you navigate properly. And we must also put on record that his duty as a minister is to Ghanaians. Of course, we agree that the portfolio is foreign affairs. Speaker, let it be on record that it is this House that normally invites ministers. It's not the other way around. The ministers will say that as and when I'm available. It cannot be the case.
Leader, we've gone past it.
Speaker, your directive should be that the minister should come on Friday. That is your directive. And the respected majority.
I think
Speaker, that is your directive. That you should be coming on Friday. Friday, we need the minister here. And the majority leader also speaks in support. I'm out of order.
Speaker, I'm just saying that this particular minister is the Minister for Foreign Affairs. The Minister for Foreign Affairs. His duty is to represent us at international conferences, at AU meetings, UN meetings, all other international events. So I'm just cautioning that we should not fix a particular date. Let us consult him, get his availability, and then communicate to the House. But to just say that he has to come on Friday, if he's not in the country on Friday, we'll be forced to come and tell him he's not available on Friday. So this is just, I won't say that in relation to the Minister for Interior. I won't say that in relation to the Minister for Defense. But for the Minister of Foreign Affairs, please, let's not be rigid about it and make it subject to his availability. Mr. Speaker, you know that this is somebody who likes to attend this House. So ordinarily, if he's in the country, he would love to come here. He's one of our very punctual members of Parliament. So please, let's not create an impression that ministers don't want to come to this House.
Leader, please, let's
Speaker, I plead with you. I represent my people. This is the minority. You see, Speaker, we shouldn't set that precedent.
Are you sure?
Speaker, with respect, we shouldn't set that precedent. Over the years, the practice has been, Speaker, communication and directives from you go to the ministry. Where they have difficulty, they write to the House. So, Speaker, let it be as you have directed.
So that is so.
Yeah, that is it.
So that's what I've said.
Exactly.
I said Friday.
It should remain like that.
So
if he has difficulty, he should get back to us.
That's fine. So the second statement or the third statement is a statement from the constituency of the Speaker. As Nadoli Kalio constituency, and this statement is put up by Honorable Anthony Suma. Yes, on the need for a legal and regulatory framework on human organ and tissue donation and transplantation in Ghana. Yes, Honorable Member, you have the floor now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to make this statement in an effort to underscore the need for a legal framework to regulate human organ and tissue donation and transplantation in Ghana. Mr. Speaker, in recent time, there have been numerous calls from various stakeholders, including the media, especially Ghana Web, health professionals, as well as health institutions, on the need for a legislation to guide the harvest, storage, and transplantation of human organ and tissues. Mr. Speaker, these concerns reached a summit only a few months ago following the increase in the cost of dialysis for patients patronizing the renal unit of the hospital, Kolubu Teaching Hospital, and the associated controversies that ensued. Mr. Speaker, the justification for this proposal cannot be overemphasized. Fundamentally, it will facilitate and streamline the availability and the provision of this life-saving medical intervention. The matter in question has gained currency to the extent that it has become a subject of the UN General Assembly and the World Health Organization resolutions. Mr. Speaker, the proposal for legislative enactment is further necessitated by the following. 1. Globally, only 10% of tissue and organ transplantation needs are met, while the need in the African region, including Ghana, is largely unknown, though its may point to a worse situation. The epidemiological trend is quite alarming, with unofficial records suggesting that 13% of Ghanaians have one form of a kidney challenge, while over 1,000 persons are undergoing dialysis. The extent of the problem could be worse, as there exists no effective system to diagnose kidney and kidney-related diseases beyond the urban centers such as Accra and Kumasi. Thirdly, the incidence and prevalence of human organ trafficking and transplant tourism in the African region, including Ghana, equally require adequate measures to overcome. The availability and capacity in terms of skill set and medical expertise to conduct the services, but hindered by the lack of enabling framework, is yet another justification. Mr. Speaker, organ transplantation is a high-value medical treatment, which is a life-saving option to patients with end-stage organ failure. It improves the quality of life by restoring organ function and eliminating debilitating conditions associated with chronic organ failure, such as poor mobility, depression, and infertility. It therefore presents a more useful intervention compared to dialysis in perpetuity. Mr. Speaker, facilitating organ donation and transplantation will contribute to significant cost saving for both patients and the health system as a whole, because between 600 and 1,200 Ghana cedis is spent on a session of dialysis, while it will cost the National Health Insurance Authority a sum of about 2.3 million Ghana cedis annually to cater for the dialysis services for persons below 18 years and above 60 years annually. Comparatively, a one-off transplant provides long-run cost saving together with accidental benefits of enabling reintegration with the family, employment, and educational opportunities. The excessive cost of procuring a kidney transplant outside this country, estimated at about $250,000, particularly in Asia, compared to having it conducted in Ghana, and the preliminary estimates put it at $21,000, also provides an additional impetus for the need to facilitate the provision of these medical services domestically. Mr. Speaker, the statute, if enacted, will make provisions for a council, transplant centers, cell banks, and prohibit dealings in human organs, commercial dealings in human organs, tissues, and cells. It will provide a system for equitable access to transplantation service across the country. It will also make it an offense for illegal dealings in human organs, tissues, and cells. Mr. Speaker, it also protects the integrity, dignity, identity, and guarantee the fundamental rights and freedoms regards to the donation and transplantation of human organs and tissues and cells. Mr. Speaker, it is important to call on the relevant stakeholders, particularly the Ministry of Health, to take necessary steps to facilitate the enactment of the legislation. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, this House can equally activate its processes in support of this call. Finally, I wish to call on all stakeholders to play their respective roles to ensure that the passage of this legislation on the subject matter takes effect. Right Honourable Speaker, I wish to thank you once again for granting me the opportunity to bring this important matter to the attention of this august House and the country at large. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, this is a very important statement, but I'm compelled to take one because we have another statement, and I believe all of us are tired. So let me go to the pharmacist and educationist, Dr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. And I would like to commend the maker of statement, the Honourable Member of Parliament for Nadoli Kalio constituency, on the need for a legal and regulatory framework on human organ and tissue donation and transplant. Mr. Speaker, most of the time when we talk about organ transplant, everybody's mind turns to kidney. We forget about the heart, we forget about the liver, we forget about pancreas, and most of the time we even forget about the intestines and the lungs. Mr. Speaker, in order to govern and ensure that we have an ethical practice as far as organ and tissue transplant is concerned, it's very critical that we as a country have such a law in place. A typical example we want to look at in the United States, they have what we call the National Organ Transplant Act that prohibits and regulates the organ transplant and how it gets to another patient. They also have in addition what we call the Uniform Anatomical Gift Act that also regulates how people can give their organs to people. Mr. Speaker, it's quite unfortunate that we in Ghana still don't have such a law in place. Because you know what happens. You know what happens is that there are different approaches. Most countries may want to look at presumed consent. Some countries may look at what we call the informed consent, and some countries may look at what we call the required request system. Mr. Speaker, because we don't have any legal system in place, people are able to do whatever they want, disregarding the risks that comes along with transplant. But if we should have this law in place, Mr. Speaker, what it's going to do is going to help. Any one of us could be at an end stage issue where we may need an organ transplant. But because we don't have a legal system in place, we don't have a system that we can be able to locate. We don't have a system that will be able to identify how many people that are in need of transplant and how many people that are ready to donate their organs for transplant. Because such countries that have such laws in place, people are able to either go under the presumed organ transplant system or the consent system. In that case, people can decide when they are going for their driver's licenses, they can decide to voluntarily donate one part of their organ when they should pass on, or they can give that permission to their relative to be able to do that. So it's very critical that we have such a thing in place. Then, of course, because we also don't have an act in place, a country like the United States right now is talking about over 104,000 people who are on the waiting list to receive one organ or the other for transplant. But because we don't have it in place, we are not able to justify who should be fairly given a transplant or an organ, because we don't have this law. So it's very critical that we should have this act in place. In that case, when any of us should be in need of an organ, or the ordinary man in a small village in my constituency, like Brahuma, needs an organ transplant, they will be treated fairly, because when you need an organ, we are all human beings and we have to be treated fairly. So it's very critical that we have this organ donation legal framework in place. Mr. Speaker, one other thing that could also help us, when you get to do with organ transplant, there are a whole lot of risks that goes with organ transplant. And because we don't have a legal framework guiding organ transplant, we realize that people go through crude means to be able to either acquire organs or to be given organs. But if we have this thing in place, it will be able to help curb what we call the surgical risks that comes with organ transplant. And many a times, these surgical risks are taken for granted. But whilst we are trying to solve a problem, this ends up giving us another problem. And most people tend to bleed to death. Most people tend to get infections whilst going through this transplant. And most people tend to have problems, what we call complication that comes alongside with anesthesia. So, Mr. Speaker, looking at all the risks that are involved, the fact that people could voluntarily donate their organs, the fact that people could be treated fairly to receive an organ, and the fact that we can come as a country, we can make resources available, and we can also train people to have the capacity to be able to go through a proper transplant processes. We need to have this framework in place so that this country can make some budget available and can also make sure when our people should receive it, they can be treated fairly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Yes, Dr. Sandari, yes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. I want to commend the maker of the statement, the honorable member for Nadoli Kaleo constituency, for his statement on the need for a legal and regulatory framework on human organ and tissue donation and transplantation in Ghana. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member has done a very good work. This is one of the very important statements in this House, and he has demonstrated his competencies, as an expert in health policy. He has identified one of the gaps in our health system, the absence of legal framework to deal with this very important area, and he has provided the justification, and some of the areas that will guide formulation of a legislation and legal framework in this area. Mr. Speaker, he has advanced, the need where more than 10% of need in Africa in this very important area. And we can go to special centers. For instance, if you take the fertility centers, you visit a fertility center and you would understand the need for women and men, struggling and doing everything possible to get a child. Many of these centers are filler, but there's really no that legal framework or legislation to guide. In this country now, we have specialist centers that can do liver transplant, do kidney transplant, but we need some legal framework to ensure that things are done according to law and that the rights of people who donate and people who receive these tissues or organs are respected. Recently, there's been an issue of, dialysis for kidney failure patients. But one other area is kidney transplant. Because if you are able to get a kidney from a donor, you live longer. But for dialysis, you have to struggle for so many sessions, only God knows for how long you live. So all these justify that there's a need to look at this area and ensure that we have a legal framework that guides, many of these specialist centers that we have in this country, because technology, medical technology, has advanced, and therefore our laws must also be advanced to accompany this advancement in medical technology. So I support the maker of the statement, and Mr. Speaker, I will also appeal that you can refer this statement to the Ministry of Health to study it and have a look at it, that will guide us to ensure that we develop a legal framework in this particular area. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. I think this is a very important statement because I've also come across some of the medical personnel commenting on this, that Parliament should legislate on these matters. So I think consequently I will refer this particular statement to the Minister responsible for health to actually look into it and see if legislation can be crafted into this particular matter. Honourable members, we are left with the last statement. And that statement is coming from Honourable Member for Akwetia, Honourable Ernest Kumi. And it is about enforcement and responsible mining practices. Yes, Leader.
Mr. Speaker, this House needs to be careful. So, Speaker, if you look at our Constitution, Article 127, Mr. Speaker, if you have a copy of your Constitution, let's look at it together. The Speaker, 127 talks about the independence of the judiciary. 1272 says that neither the President nor Parliament nor any person acting under the authority of the President or Parliament nor any other person whatsoever shall interfere with judges or judicial officers or other persons exercising judicial power in the exercise of their judicial functions. And all organs and agencies of the state shall accord to the courts such assistance as the courts may reasonably require to protect the independence, dignity, and effectiveness of the courts subject to this Constitution. Mr. Speaker, if you look at our standing orders, it is also clear on your functions and your responsibilities as a Speaker. Let's go to Order 20. Mr. Speaker, Order 20 is clear that the Speaker shall uphold the honor, dignity, and sanctity of the House. Mr. Speaker, the maker of the statement has been convicted by a High Court. Convicted by a High Court. I have read it in the papers. I have read it on social media. And he wants to come and stand in this chamber and make statements so that this House will be telling the courts that it doesn't matter what you do. Mr. Speaker, it doesn't uphold the dignity and honor of this House. It doesn't uphold the dignity and honor of this House. That he has been convicted by the courts, and indeed, the basis of his conviction is the conduct in this chamber. The basis of his conviction is the conduct in this chamber. When he was cautioned that if he insisted and had himself sworn in as a member of parliament in the face of a restraining order by a court, if the court came after him, he will be accountable alone. We will not be part of it. This was made very clear in this chamber. And he took it upon himself to take the risk. And then he was ready to take responsibility for his conduct. Mr. Speaker, it's time for him to go and account for his conduct. But to come and stand in this chamber and we will all participate in sitting here and listening to him make a statement as if the courts are nothing. Mr. Speaker, I'm not ready to be part of it. So I have strong objections to him reading a statement in this chamber because the courts have convicted him. He should go and appeal against the conviction, have it set aside, and come back. And we have a duty as a House to uphold the dignity, the integrity, and the respect of our courts and the rule of law. He is aware. Your leader on several occasions told the Speaker that even if he was not served, once he became aware of a decision of the courts, the Speaker must act on the basis of becoming aware. So it's not a question of whether he has been served. He is aware that the courts have convicted him. He is aware that the courts have convicted him. And he wants to come and stand in this chamber and make a statement. I caution. I said, don't do that. Don't make a statement. So, Mr. Speaker, we have strong objections.
Yes, Minority Leader. I'm a Minority Chief Whip.
Let me allow my colleague.
Afterwards, you wouldn't comment, please. This is not a matter of debate. I'm giving the opportunity to you because you are a leader.
Speaker, first of all,
once you yield it.
Speaker, this is a subject matter which is very important as legal jurisprudence of our parliamentary democracy, and also in respect of separation of powers. It's important, Speaker, we educate ourselves on this matter. And Speaker, I will defer to you. If it is the case that when he speaks, I will not speak, so be it. But I thought that he, being an industry person, we should hear his side or what input he can bring to the matter at table, and then we can conclude on it.
What I'm saying is,
Speaker, with greatest respect to our colleagues, when the leader was speaking, we all paid attention and listened to him in silence. Why can't you listen to our side in silence? Why? Or the parliament of this republic is one-sided?
Is this parliamentary one-sided? It's not right. Anytime we are on our speak, you want to interfere. Why? When the leader was speaking, we listened to him. You have to stop this. It doesn't help. Speaker, my point is, please, the greatest of respect, and I'm saying this because we were at conclave, we engaged on same subject matter, and Speaker, you decided to admit the statement. You were not under duress. Speaker, you exercised your powers to admit, and the admission of statement is in the bosom of the Speaker. So the Speaker has admitted a statement, and upon hindsight, some concerns comes up. We all have to bear patience and listen. Speaker, on this note, I pray you that we listen to our colleague. When he's done, and you find it needful to listen to me, so be it. Otherwise, we can proceed.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker,
allow. Stand tall.
you wish you could also stand. You wish you could also stand.
Stand tall.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very grateful for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I am also very grateful to the
Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I'm also very grateful to the Minority Chief Whip. I am also very grateful.
Honorable members, why?
Mr. Speaker.
Keep quiet.
Mr. Speaker,
I am also very
I
grateful.
have asked him to speak on behalf of the leadership. So afterwards,
Mr. Speaker, I am also very grateful to the Minority Chief Whip, who is keen on seeing to the development of his first timers. Minority Chief Whip, may you live long. Mr. Speaker, it is important we emphasize that the principle of separation of powers does not mean that Parliament is inferior to the judiciary. It is very important. The protection which is given by the Constitution, in the same token, hey, you are saying that the African wear is improper dressing. Hey, Mr. Speaker, in the same token, the Constitution also protects parliamentarians. The same token, the Constitution also protects parliamentarians. Mr. Speaker, when you look at Article 117 of the 1992 Constitution, is one of the means by which the Constitution protects parliamentarians. Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence, if I may read, civil or criminal processes coming from any court or place not of Parliament shall not be served or executed in relation to the Speaker or a member or the clerk to Parliament while he is or on his way to attending or returning from or any proceedings of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, the standing orders, Mr. Speaker, even does the job. Starting from Order 25, which is titled Matters Relating to Criminal Processes. Mr. Speaker, it is very important that we emphasize that contempt proceedings are quasi-criminal. In other words, it is like criminal. Mr. Speaker, when you look at Order 25(3), it says that where a member of or the clerk to Parliament is convicted by a court of competent jurisdiction,
the registrar of the court shall within 12 hours after the conviction inform the speaker of the conviction. Mr. Speaker, do you have any notice from the court? No. Mr. Speaker, do you have any notice from the court? No. Mr. Speaker, it is very important. Mr. Speaker, it is very important that we do not go searching newspapers. We do not go looking at newspapers or listening to news to be finding out which member of parliament has been convicted. Mr. Speaker, that is not our job. Our job, very respectfully, is to come and represent our constituents in parliament and serve as legislators. Mr. Speaker, if there is any conviction, same will be served on you. Until that is done, Mr. Speaker, very respectfully, it does appear that what we are being fed in this house by the distinguished, by the venerable majority leader, would does appear to be a hearsay. Very respectfully, Mr. Speaker, Parliament does not dabble in ake. Yes, say. Parliament does not dabble in ake. Yes, say. Mr. Speaker, unless there is notice, very respectfully, what has been brought before you, Mr. Speaker, would seem to be ake. Yes, say. Mr. Speaker, Order 25, Rule 5 says that failure of the registrar to inform the speaker constitutes contempt of parliament. Mr. Speaker, it may seem that the majority leader is bringing to your attention contempt of parliament by the registrar of the court. If there is any such conviction, is that what the majority leader is doing before the court? Venerable majority leader, distinguished majority leader, is it that you are bringing to the attention of the court contempt of court by the registrar of the court? Or are you now the registrar? Very respectfully, Mr. Speaker, in the circumstance of this, Mr. Speaker, this parliament cannot trade in ake to disenfranchise or disallow a member of this house from performing his legislative duty. Very respectfully, Mr. Speaker, I'm very grateful. And in conclusion, I want to thank again the Venerable Anodompre, the MP for Isawama Dwejiri, for the encouragement he's giving to the backbenchers. Honorable, we are grateful.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member who just spoke, he cited Order 25 of our standing orders. Mr. Speaker, Order 25, 24 deal with the service of processes. We're not talking about the service of processes. We're not. Mr. Speaker, secondly, Order 25 talks about detention. Subject to Order 24, where a member of, or the clerk to parliament, where a member, please listen, where a member of, or the clerk to parliament is restricted, detained, or arrested, the person responsible for the restriction, detention, or arrest shall within 6 hours of the restriction, detention, or arrest inform the speaker of the restriction, detention, or arrest. Has the man been arrested? Has he been restricted? Has he been detained? So how does Order 25 come into play? Mr. Speaker, here we are talking about, Mr. Speaker, here we are talking about a conviction. A conviction. He has been convicted. He has been convicted. Mr. Speaker, I know because he is defending his right to speak here, because he says that even if he has been convicted, if we have not been properly served, then we should not deny him a right to speak in this chamber. That's what he's saying. He is not denying that he hasn't been convicted. Nobody in this chamber is denying that he hasn't been convicted, because they know he has been convicted. It is public knowledge. It is common knowledge. It's been covered widely by the media. And my argument is that this house must respect a coordinate branch of government. We will not arrest him and hand him over to the judges. We will not arrest him and hand him over to the prisons authorities. But we will not condone him coming here and boldly making statements on the floor of this house as if we don't care about the judiciary and what they are doing. It doesn't speak well of the rule of law. There's somebody who knows very well that he has been convicted by the courts for a conduct that he engages in this house. And we caution him in this house. We say, look, there is a court order restraining you from being sworn in. If you refuse and you allow us to swear you in, you will be held accountable. And he said, yes, he's ready to be held accountable. Now he has been held accountable by the courts, and he wants to come and use this parliament as a shield. Mr. Speaker, it won't happen. This side will not allow that. We will not allow him to make the statement on this floor, because he has been convicted by the courts. At least he should go and file an appeal. He should file an appeal. He should seek to stay the execution of the orders of the court. Then we know that due process is being complied with. Mr. Speaker, I want to indicate clearly that if you insist and admit this statement and you allow him to make the statement, this side of the house will wash our hands off and then we'll walk out and leave you to make your statements. We'll wash our hands off because we don't believe in undermining the judiciary. We don't believe in undermining the rule of law. We will not join you to undermine the rule of law. We will not join you to undermine the judiciary. We will wash our hands off and then we'll leave the chamber.
Mr. Speaker, I was watching proceedings from my office, and I heard you call the member for Akutia to make a statement which you've duly admitted. Upon calling his name, the majority leader and leader of government business rose up, relying on Order 20 and Article 127 of the Constitution. He argued. First leg of his argument, inviting you to uphold the dignity of this house and generally to help in respecting the independence of the judiciary. Let me say that those submissions he made, though are legal submissions, but I find those submissions very rich in the context that he submits same on this House floor. Mr. Speaker, first, the applicant. In October 2024, a matter arose regarding some vacant seats. I, as a leader of government business, feeling dissatisfied, and upon reading the Constitution, felt that the right place and forum was the Supreme Court. Mr. Speaker, the majority leader, who was a de facto legal advisor to the then minority front bench, was very much aware of the matters in issue, I first sought an ex parte relief. I first applied to the court, invoked the jurisdiction of the court through an ex parte application, and made all the matters known to the court, and the court ruled in my favor. That order of the court staying the decision of the speaker, which stay of execution allowed the majority to stay in its place, was forcefully challenged with all the energy from the majority leader of Parliament as a second respondent, and when the court finally made a determination, now he's a majority leader, but then he was not a majority leader. Mr. Speaker, argued on radio. Mr. Speaker, still challenging the court, and they still occupied our seats, making it virtually impossible for Parliament to sit until after the elections, when they so moto, Mr. Speaker, when after the elections, when there was not even any discussion, they got back because they knew they had won, then resumed their seats in the minority side without anybody telling them that go and sit on your own seat. Mr. Speaker, this is the same person who today is talking about law. Mr. Speaker, this is by way of my preliminary observation. Now, let me respond to him on the proper law. Let me now respond to him on the proper law. But as smart as he is, and as I know him to be, when he was landing, he argued some law to create a ventilation for his own argument. And that is that ventilation that I will use to arrest his argument. What was the ventilation? He said, unless the member has filed an appeal and is staying the execution of the order, I am able, as a leader of my side, to provide him with that information. That, Mr. Speaker, if his concerns is about the rule of law, this side would always respect the rule of law. The honorable member has indeed filed an appeal, filed a stay of execution, and for your information, there was a stay of proceedings. There was a stay of proceedings application pending before the very judge. A stay of, yes, and you are a practitioner. A stay of proceedings application pending before the very judge. Mr. Speaker, there was also an application invoking the supervisory jurisdiction of the court, of the Supreme Court, under Article 132 of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, the court below, the High Court in Koforidua, had been served, and the registrar of the court indeed had brought that process to the attention and notice of the judge. Mr. Speaker, our side, even where we disagree, we will not go insulting judges. The fact that we have been quiet does not mean that we think the judge has been fair to us. And you will not see us calling the judge names. We are not like some people. We are not like some people. When we disagree with a judge, we will use lawful process and lawful means to challenge the orders of the court. Mr. Speaker, we are saying that there is a process pending before the court. There is no finality in the matter in issue. The honorable majority leader who raised the matter knows very well that a conviction, even if the member has been served, the judge himself said he was going to have time.
Honorable members. Honorable members. Honorable, hold on. Yes, Honorable Dafiam.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to intervene in pursuance of Order 1221A. First of all, it is most inaccurate for the minority leader to submit on this floor that the majority at the time, before the general elections of 7th December, we forcefully refused to respect the court order. It cannot be accurate. The terms of the court order were specific. The court orders were directed at the speaker to perform a certain function. And being the occupier of that seat, we submitted that until that decision was taken by the House. The status quo ante will remain. What was the status quo ante? Our position by occupying the majority side before the court decision. That cannot be erroneous in law. The court itself ordered that the House must take that decision. So for him to submit that we unlawfully, forcefully, and refuse to obey the court order, that cannot be allowed to form part of the records of this House. Tomorrow it can be invoked against us. That's one. Two, Speaker, when you are convicted by a court of competent jurisdiction, you don't file stay of proceedings. They have been convicted. Waters have passed under the bridge. You are convicted. Please, I'm not misquoting you. I heard you clearly.
I was waiting to tell you. I was waiting to respond.
Speaker, I have not yielded the floor to the honorable minority leader. I have not. So you should listen to me in much pain and in silence. I know he'll come back. If you are convicted by a competent court of jurisdiction, conviction, what follows is sentencing. And that is what is pending in this matter. You don't file a stay of proceedings, with all due respect. Now, third, Mr. Speaker, I rose, Mr. Speaker,
Honorable Dafiama,
Mr. Speaker,
Honorable Dafiama,
Mr. Speaker.
Listen. You see, he was speaking. I would have given you opportunity to also speak if you had allowed him to finish. I thought you were coming to a point. Coming on point of order, but
Mr.
please,
Speaker,
you've raised the issue. Let me finish.
Mr. Speaker, I am not. Mr. Speaker, I'm not done. I anchored my submission pursuant of Order 12218. I am not done. Mr. Speaker, you give the minority leader sometimes 1 hour to make submissions. I've not even done 5 minutes. So permit me. This house is a house of politics. What is doing is politics. It is not religion. It is not faith. It is not economics. It is politics. What they seek to do is politics. And we cannot allow politics to impugn the integrity of the courts. We cannot. Mr. Speaker, this house is mandated in law not to engage in an irregularity, in any unlawful conduct. We cannot participate in it, and we cannot allow the house, properly constituted, to engage in it. It cannot. So Mr. Speaker, this house, the information before this house is that the honorable member for Akwete has been convicted. And he's become a fugitive of justice. He's a fugitive of justice. Mr. Speaker, for what follows conviction is sentencing. What he should be doing is to sending his lawyers to the court, to the High Court, to submitting a plea of allocutus, a plea mitigation, pending sentencing. So, Mr. Speaker, we will not, and with all due deference to my leader, he gave a direction. Yes, by all means, we'll take that, but we will yield the floor. We will not disengage, we will not depart, we will not participate in any proceedings that will allow the honorable member to have locus to make submissions on the floor. It won't happen.
Very well.
Mr. Speaker, so let me conclude by saying that the minority leader, an able lawyer that he is, eloquent that he is, should be advising his colleague to go and respect the court and submit to the powers of, even if you are proceeding to the Supreme Court or whichever court, you need to submit to the jurisdiction of the court first of all. You cannot be doing so as a fugitive of justice. An arrest warrant has been issued, properly issued, for his arrest. That this house cannot gloss over the issuance of an arrest warrant for him and I still permit him to have locus. Mr. Speaker, on this note, we want to urge you that, leader, if I have your permission, let me move that the house be adjourned. The house be adjourned. Let me move that the house be adjourned.
Yes, leader, let me hear you.
Mr. Speaker, let me refer my colleagues to the decision of the Supreme Court on the 18th of October 2024. Mr. Speaker, this is what the Supreme Court said. The Parliament of Ghana is hereby directed to recognize and allow the 4 members of Parliament herein named to duly represent their constituents and conduct full scope of duties of their offices as members of Parliament pending the determination of this suit. Mr. Speaker, in his submission, the Majority Chief Whip said that the court decided that this House should take a decision. The court directed. If people are diluting their law with politics, they should dilute it properly, because these are reputational issues. These are reputational issues. The Supreme Court did not urge upon us to take a decision. It directed. And I submit that they refused to respect the decision of the Supreme Court. That is what they did. And today, I am directly confronting you with that decision you took in October. Mr. Speaker, that aside, in my earlier submissions, my argument was to the effect that prior to the conviction, the court was seized with an application to stay proceedings. I didn't say that the man filed a stay of proceedings. I didn't say the man filed a stay of proceedings pending appeal. I didn't say that. He had a stay. Mr. Speaker, I know some people are at the back there. I am aware they have finished the LLB, and I know they are still attempting to get to the law school. I am a practitioner. Mr. Speaker, I am a courtroom practitioner. I know courtroom practice and courtroom rules. So I'm talking law. And I want my colleagues to listen. I'm saying that Honorable Kumi had filed a stay of proceedings application, which application was pending before the court at the time that the same court was seized with the application committing him for contempt. The court was aware. And I am saying that the court, after its decision, there is a stay of execution and an appeal, notice of appeal. These two processes have been found. If they don't know, I'm letting them know now. It is most unfair for Mr. Dafia Mekpo to describe a respected colleague as a fugitive. Never again should such a statement come out of the mouth of a colleague. Maybe today you find it convenient, but trust me, come on, await each one of us. You cannot describe your colleague as a fugitive. The man has submitted to the authority of the court. Is the reason why he has filed a notice of appeal and has supported that notice with a stay of execution. There is a stay of execution application, a stay of execution. Meanwhile, Mr. Speaker, let me also inform this House that prior to the High Court coming up with that decision, the High Court was again seized with the application invoking the supervisory jurisdiction of the Supreme Court on its conduct, because the registrar of the court had been served, and the court indeed was on notice, but the court decided to proceed. We don't mind, because we believe that we can still rely on judicial processes. And I did say that our side does not take to the insults. We won't go on the radio to insulting judges when we disagree with them. It's the reason why we have been most decent. We will not go attacking a judge on social media and be using unprintable words on judges just because we disagree with them. No. Mr. Speaker, the invitation to you to restrain the member from making his statement, Mr. Speaker, is most unfair. That invitation sits on stilts. That invitation is not based on any solid foundation in law. And Mr. Speaker, an attempt to be hoodwinked into any valley of confusion would amount to a general confusion in this house, because the majority leader knows that he was only doing politics and not doing law. He knows that what he did was politics and not law. Mr. Speaker, in this house, how can a member of parliament who in the performance of his parliamentary duties has not been served with the court process? Mr. Speaker, let them sit quietly and listen. Let me finish my submission. Mr. Speaker, if they want, then we should. What? Yes. Well, that's all right. Mr. Speaker, it is clear that the NDC side, when they talk, they don't want anybody also to have this opportunity. It was started by you. I am responding to your argument. Why? We cannot respond to you.
Honorable Minority Leader, let me listen to him.
Mr. Speaker, he has to finish. He has to listen to me.
I'll come back to you.
He has a point of reply. He must. When Afenyo Maki speaks, many of you will get
Honorable members.
When Afenyo Maki, many points of order.
Honorable members.
When? Many points of order.
Honorable members.
You cannot tolerate.
If you wouldn't allow me, I will go ahead, suspend the house, and
you will not adjourn the house. Mr. Speaker, they want an adjournment. We would argue the case today. We will argue no adjournment. Mr. Speaker, we will argue. Let us argue the issues with the adjournment.
Honorable members.
You are running away. You brought your application, you are running away.
Honorable
you
members,
brought your application, you are running away.
The time is 5 to 4 o'clock. You are in my hands. The house is accordingly adjourned.
Read your statement to the end.
You cannot read your statement. You cannot read your statement. You cannot read your statement. Member Fakotia, go ahead and read your statement.
Go ahead and read your statement. Go ahead and read your statement.
Honorable Member Fakotia, go ahead and